Welcome to another deep dive. Now, we often think about crime, locally, what's happening in our communities, but today we're really broadening that view quite a bit, actually. We're going to explore how globalization, this increasing interconnectedness of everything, right? Goods, information, people moving faster and faster, how that's really changed what crime is. And doing that, well, it's probably going to challenge some of our usual ideas, especially when we start talking about things like green crime or human rights violations.
Yeah, it's a really crucial shift, I think, in how we understand harm itself. Globalization, I mean, sure, it creates amazing opportunities, business, communication, all that. But maybe inevitably, it also carves out completely new paths for crime. Paths that just ignore national borders entirely. Just think about, say, the global drug trade or human trafficking, cybercrime that's everywhere now, the illegal arms trade too. These aren't, small-time things. They depend on global networks to function. And that scale, well, it makes it incredibly tough for just one country to police it or control it, which really sets up the conversation for why we need to maybe rethink what we even call crime.
That really does shift the perspective, doesn't it? So this interconnectedness, this globalization thing, how does it actually transform what might have been, I don't know, a local issue into something operating across borders so effectively, too, making it so complex to even get a handle on? It's not just like a bigger gang, is it? It feels different.
It absolutely is different. I mean, the sheer scale, the reach of these operations, whether it's huge drug cartels or these really complex human trafficking rings, it just throws the limits of our old ways of policing into sharp relief. The nation-state model. It's not just about size. It's about digital currency flowing instantly across borders. It's about encrypted communications that authorities struggle to crack. Or these incredibly sophisticated logistics chains that look almost like legitimate global businesses. Things that just weren't really possible, not on this scale, before globalization really took off. So if you connect that to the bigger picture, yeah, our old definitions, our old policing methods, they often just fall short. And that's exactly why we need to evolve our understanding of crime itself to match these new realities.
Okay, so building on that challenge to definitions, let's look at an area that really forces the issue: green crime, crimes against the environment. I mean, when we talk about environmental harm, where do we even start defining what's a crime? Is it just about, breaking the law? Or is there more to it?
That's the million-dollar question, really. And it's where you see a big split in criminological thinking. Traditionally, yeah, green crime is defined pretty simply. Any act that breaks a country's environmental laws. Straightforward, right?
Seems so.
But the immediate problem is those laws are all over the place, wildly different from country to country. Some places have really weak regulations. So something could cause massive environmental damage, but technically not be illegal there at all.
Wow. So something absolutely devastating for the planet could be perfectly legal somewhere, but a major crime somewhere else. Just depends on where it happens. That sounds like a huge loophole. Or maybe, yeah, a big ethical blind spot in the law itself.
It definitely presents a huge challenge. And that leads us to this idea of green criminology, which takes a much more radical approach. They call it transgressive.
Transgressive.
Meaning it deliberately steps outside the normal legal boundaries. It transgresses them. Green criminologists basically argue that we should define green crime as any act that harms the environment, period.
Regardless of legality.
Exactly. Whether it's currently legal or not. That's the core idea. So think about it like this. A company illegally dumps toxic waste in a developing country. Okay, that's a crime by both definitions, traditional and green.
Right, clear cut.
But what if a huge company is legally pumping out massive amounts of carbon emissions? Operating totally within its permits, following the rules. From a traditional view, not a crime, but from a green criminology perspective, it absolutely is a crime because of the harm it causes.
Ah, okay. That distinction is really critical then.
It absolutely is. It forces you to stop and think, are our current laws really enough to deal with the scale of environmental damage we're seeing globally?
That is a powerful idea, really challenging. This whole transgressive notion pushes things. Does that kind of thinking, that logic, apply when we look at actions by, well, not individuals or companies, but by states? Governments themselves? What about state crimes? I mean, these are often the most serious, aren't they? Illegal acts done by a state or, for a state. The examples are just horrifying. Genocide, torture, war crimes. But here's the crunch, isn't it? What if the state's own laws don't actually call what they're doing a crime? How do you hold power like that accountable?
And that's precisely why this idea of a human rights framework is so incredibly important here, so vital. By using universal human rights as the standard, these rights that are supposed to apply to everyone, everywhere, no matter what. Well, using that framework, we can actually define state actions as criminal, even if they're technically legal within that specific country.
Okay, so it provides an external standard.
Exactly. Take torture, for example. A state might use it. Its own laws might not forbid it, or they might even, implicitly allow it in certain circumstances. But measured against universal human rights, it's unequivocally a violation. And therefore, you could argue, a crime in that broader sense. And what's really fascinating here is the work someone like Stanley Cohen did. He studied this extensively. He looked at how states actually try to justify what they do, how they deny their crimes. He came up with this concept, techniques of neutralisation.
Techniques of neutralisation.
Yeah, basically the way states try to rationalize these awful things. They might claim, oh, we're acting for the greater good. Or maybe more chillingly, well, the victims deserved it. It gives you this powerful insight to how these power structures actually work to avoid being held responsible.
That's pretty sobering, isn't it? How those justifications can be used to just shut down criticism and hide terrible things. It really shows the power of language, I suppose, in defining what is or isn't seen as a crime. So, okay, let's try and pull this together. What does all this mean for you listening? This deep dive, it really has given us a new way to look at crime, hasn't it? A more critical lens. We've seen how globalization creates these totally new forms of crime, really hard to police in the old ways. We've talked about how green criminology pushes us to look past just the law books to define environmental harm as crime. And crucially, how this human rights framework is just essential, really, for holding even states accountable, regardless of their own laws.
It really does bring it all together, I think, because
Yeah.
the bigger understanding of crime, it's not just, some academic thing. It's about actually seeing the full picture of harm, especially in this super interconnected world we live in now. It pushes us, doesn't it, to think about what justice really means when the lines of legality get fuzzy, or when harm happens on such a massive global scale.
Right. So, as you reflect on all this, here's something to maybe chew on. If some of the worst harms to our planet, harms to other human beings can actually happen within the boundaries of the law, what does that really tell us about how we define justice? And, maybe more importantly, what kind of responsibilities does that put on you as someone who's now thinking about this as a well-informed global citizen?